to a new episode of Advancing Consciousness series with Franco Di Nicola. This is a place where people can come to gain further insight and clarity as to what is going on and how we can shift things on a personal and global level, while also accessing higher levels of consciousness and awareness. We bring this series to you free of charge so that many are able to access this information. However, if you resonate with what Franco shares and you would like to support his work to get more content out, contributions are welcomed and greatly appreciated. A link is in the description and will be provided in the chat if you feel guided to do so. Also, we have many previous workshops, such as the most recent, Bringing Out the New You to Play in the New World, along with our membership program, Let's Talk About You, where like-minded people come together bi-weekly to talk about the topics requiring deeper understanding and clarity. All of these are available on Teachable, and we encourage you to check them out as they are great resources at very affordable prices to assist in better understanding this human experience. The Teachable link will also be provided in the chat and is also in the description. And lastly, don't forget to share. As more of us come together who are creating shifts in themselves, the more effective it will be to shift things globally. Thank you for joining us and being part of the change. Enjoy today's broadcast.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Advancing Consciousness series. This is the series that triggers, expands you in very powerful ways and gives you the opportunity to reach new levels of essence within yourself. And right now, with everything that's playing out in the world and all of the experiences that we're having within ourselves, this series here is there to support you in a huge way. And again, you guys are the ones that are doing what you're doing, and it's not somebody else doing it for you or myself. I'm only sharing content, information, and so forth to assist you to remember more of who you are, to be much more effective in what you need to do. So here we are. We're in episode 39. I am flying solo today, so I won't be able to manage your questions. We're having some technical issues with the internet. It's been down for a few days now, and we have a kind of patchwork right now to get it going, and we're supposed to get some services tomorrow to see if they can resolve it. Therefore, running more than one computer at a time here is just challenging the minimal resources that we have. Hopefully we won't drop anybody along the way. We are streaming again on YouTube and also Facebook. So anyways, welcome. And today we're going to look at what are you allowing to shape your reality and world. Now give me a second here. I'm just going to take care of something here. Perfect. Okay. I have to man everything at this point, so I was hoping that the music was not in the background still playing. Anyways, okay. All right. It looks like it's okay. So, welcome, and we get to play today on what we are allowing to actually, at this point in time, allowing to shape our reality and world. And I know it's a tough question and say, what are we allowing at this point in time? Most of us do not realize how much we are in charge of what is taking place in our design of our reality and world. So our current moment, our current situation, our current reality playground that we're in and whatever's playing out. And I'm talking about not only personally from a personal aspect, being the physicality, being your own essence, but also the people that are involved in your life, the people that you are dancing with every day through your interactions. And of course, it goes from your immediate family to extended family, to your work environment, to your friendships, to your community, to whatever other affiliations that you may have at this point in time. And then on the larger scales of when we're talking about different countries and the world itself. So with this understanding that we are very involved in every aspect of what we are experiencing at this point in time and how things are unfolding, that we have to give permission and also provide allowance for things to play out. Now, what happens is a lot of times, because of the choices and roles that we have taken on, and because we've been playing for so long the game of life, and of course we're going through the transformation and awakening and whatever you want to call it at this point, but many of us do not realize how much of what we are exposing ourselves and what we're playing with is actually powerfully contributing to what you are shaping and experiencing. So I know I talked a little bit about it in the last episode about a week ago, actually a little over a week ago now, because of these issues that we've had with our technology components that are playing out. And since we're live streaming, I don't go unrecorded. We have to kind of fly with whatever we have to deal with. So what I've talked about, what we expose ourselves, what we give power to. Now, the first thing we want to look at, what actually we allowing to take over ourselves. Now, first part is, yes, our belief systems, our stories, our perceptions, any adopted idea play a very powerful role in shaping our reality and world. Also, our emotions take a powerful role too. Now, if you look at it, let's look at it that. If we have certain beliefs, we use those beliefs to shape our reality. But those beliefs also shape our reality by just allowing it to be there. So that means as you're having those thoughts, as your focus goes into those directions, in whatever that belief may be, we create a reality. Now, for example, if we take on a belief system that something works a certain way, could be religious, could be from education, could be anything. If we accept it as a reality, then we're allowing that reality, that idea, concept, belief system to be implemented and utilized as you shape your own personal life, and you're also shaping the reality of your surroundings, the choices you make and the engagements you get involved with. So that's one part of it. So as you're playing with that, you see yourself in that beautiful dance because of those belief systems that are come into place. Now, the belief systems doesn't stop on just a belief system. So you give yourself the opportunity to say, okay, I accept this belief system or this idea, but the idea gets reinforced by the collective involved in that idea. So if, again, we're going back to the religious component of it, as we have a belief that there is a construct of realism, or that we have given ourselves the capacities to give power to that, then whatever is being dictated or shared or anything of that nature that comes forward, presented over and over again, either from whoever the leadership may be or whoever's engaged, or what the collective of that unit provides. All of that ends up coming into a constant streaming and reinforcement. So we're going back to allowing. So if you go to a service or you go to a gathering that has a particular idea and concept that reinforces that belief system or that faith or whatever we want to call it, then whatever we're exposed to is allowed, because we are allowing it, by accepting it, allowing it to continue to either reinforce what you already have or to upgrade what you have. And the last part is to actually accentuate it even further. So this is the thing. So if that group has a certain idea of fears and some dictatorship of something of higher levels of entities or whatever may be with that idea, then what happens is as they relate it, as they continue to reinforce it, as much as they're playing into that, you're allowing that to be reinforcing that belief, but also reinforcing the energies that are streaming. Because again, any exposures of that nature actually also creates and carries an energy imprint. And that frequency and that vibration becomes part of your experience. So what I'm saying is the fact that be open to the idea that, or the understanding, because you know this from deep within, whatever you're exposing yourself to, you're providing an allowance for that to actually play a role. Now, is this a negative thing or a bad thing? Well, no, but at the same time, is it supporting a newer version of you? Is it more of that enlightened, expanded self that you are choosing to go down that path? Because you can have all of that streaming into your life, you can play any part of that and have that come through your design of what you're going to create in your reality. But at the same time, you have to really understand, is this also serving me in one way or another to the person I am becoming? And when I say person, that's loosely said that way, because person is an expression part of it, of a physical sense, but you're much more than that. You're a source representation or source expression that is carrying a very specific signature to play out a particular role. Now, your role is not isolated to you. Your role is also engaging other aspects of yourself. Now, there's two parts to that. Well, your reinforcement that you are projecting or experiencing within yourself, you're reinforcing whatever group is involved or individuals involved. And the same is happening the other way around, so that whatever they're expressing, experiencing, and so forth, you're also taking in. Now, of course, you have to allow it to become something that affects you or not. And when I say affects you, it becomes something that stimulates a pattern of an experience at that point, or not. This is the beauty of it. So this is how it works in that regards. So it does not stop on a religious affiliation. It goes on so many levels at this point in time. So let's go back to your personal aspect of it. So depending on how you feel, being whatever story belief systems that you adopted through the different stages of your life in its perfection at the time is still very much present with you. So what you're going to be looking at is your focus of what is coming up for you and what is playing out for you, in the sense that if this is coming through to me at this point in time, how much do I utilize? So even allowing yourself, saying, I'm allowing my ego to shape my life. This is a powerful observation here. Our ego is a powerful storyteller, and it is very much related to an older version of you or multiple versions of you, but also designed to replicate and stimulate what we have left in fragments of programs and belief systems around the inverted matrix, inverted 3D and 2D part of it. So the thing is, for us to be shaped and directed and guided by our ego, or utilize the ego to create our reality each moment, we have to provide an allowance. A lot of times we don't believe that or know that there's an allowance made. The moment you accept the story, the moment you say, oh, that is real, then you're allowing that input, which is streamed from or pulled out of your subconscious mind and possibly from the collective, to be utilized and plugged in as part of your creation. So this is where it becomes very key and instrumental to be observant of what your ego is saying. Not to fight with it and you're acknowledging and appreciating and loving it, but at the same time saying, okay, am I going to allow this particular input, could be fear-based, which is most of the time, or separation-based, where you're feeling that, unsafe or this or that, or the fact that, you have no support, or whatever the story may be, because it has many, many stories it can concoct and create and drag through whatever your experience and what the collective has projected. So for you to be driven by your ego, you need to allow it. And this is where it's instrumental to be observant of what you're connecting to at this point in time when it comes to the ego story, because that's what it does. It presents stories. So the story is going to say this or that or whatever it is, but it's up to us to say, I'm going to allow that to not only change my emotions or trigger my emotions, but also my thoughts, my directions and choices. And by doing those things and also putting focus on it, then it becomes instrumental in creating our reality. So that's what we're doing. So we're basically allowing it to shape our reality and world within ourselves and our external world. Now, the other part too is also our body. Our body has a lot of different programs that it may have utilized, in this case known also as patterns. What does that mean? Patterns of having sort of addictions, a pattern of feeling that if it does this, it needs to feel this way or so forth. And that is programmed and conditioned into the body. So those memories stay there. So a lot of times what happens is they, well, you know, I have, what do they call it? Not even addiction, but I have a craving. Let's use that word. A craving for the ice cream, the chips, this and that, or processed food, whatever it may be. And you're saying, well, this is the body calling for it, right? And yes, you can interpret it that way. However, those are just old memories. And the only reason the memories are there is because we've adopted the idea and then introduced the body to that, and we created a pattern and a dependency on those items or those food or whatever you want to call it to stimulate your body a certain way. So we establish a pattern in that regard. So if you're feeling drawn to something, you need to ask and have the conversation with yourself. When we're talking about yourself, you're talking about the body. Is the body just reacting to a pattern? Because if it is so, we're basically allowing that pattern to dictate not only what we're consuming and how we feel about how we're consuming, it can extend to other levels of other things that are playing out in regards to how we feel emotionally too. Because many of us use what we consume on a physical sense of what we eat and drink and so forth to appease certain emotions. And then we are creating a correlation, a connection to it, so that if you don't feel great, then you're going to go to that. So you want to also pay attention to that part, because that requires you to allow. So if the body is saying, I want this, well, does it want it because it is exactly what the body can flourish from it or not? One of the easy way to look at that is after you actually induce that consumption of some sort, whatever that may be, how you actually feel physically. Because there's two parts of it. One is an emotion, one of it is kind of a reaction of chemistry and so forth, if you want to call it that, just to use it loosely. But the other part of it is the actual feeling of the body, how it feels with having that vibrational food or drink and that encodements that are involved in those vibrations, how the body feels. Is it elevating the body? Is it supporting it in its pristine state? Or is it lowering the vibration? Is it also putting a load of discomfort on the body and then can create another pattern of emotions of feeling judgmental or angry with yourself to once again to go down that pattern? So this is very important for us to look at when we are about to consume everything. Is it an idea that this is good for me, or is it a body pull for you to consume something because it has a pattern and it's kind of addicted to that pattern, but that pattern is automatic depending on, because you'll notice sometimes you won't have that pattern, but you may sit in front of the TV, for example, and all of a sudden you need to snack. Or if you're having a rough day at work or your life or whatever else, and then you're drawn to something else because the sweetness or the bitterness or the saltiness or whatever it may be has an association of comfort, and that's why people call it comfort food. So it has an association of comfort, and we're reaching out to that. But that, by doing so, we're allowing that to come into our reality and alter how the body feels, but it also nurtures a program or a reaction of some sort when it comes to feeling. So what we're talking about feeling, we're talking about how we feel about the day or anything of that nature. So there's the physical component is really to be attentive to really, so you can use the tool of imagining yourself before even introducing that particular food that you're going to consume or drink or anything of that nature, and connect with it and just see yourself, envision yourself consuming it. And you can go through the whole sensorial experience of feeling that coming into your system and how you feel about consuming that food within yourself. Because what you're going to do is you're going to also observe how the body responds, and the body will respond either as something that it's rejecting, or it lowers the frequency or something of that nature. That way you don't have to continue to support that pattern of consuming and then feeling bad. So in essence, you want to observe, because the other part you need to observe too is that you had such and such a day. What does that mean to you? What's the story behind it, or why do you feel that way? So it's highly recommended that you write down how you're feeling and then look at the reasons you're feeling that way. And you want to dissect and break that down to get to the core part of what that feels. So you have to understand that all of this still supports you in one way or another. So that's the physical part. The same thing with the emotional part. The emotions at times get triggered, or a program gets triggered, and then you feel a certain emotion, and then you're allowing those emotions to take over and dictate how you feel, how you're going to respond, what actions you're going to take or not going to take, or just go down a spiral of sorts of going into a lower frequency, a lower state, and feeling not so good about yourself. So, as I said, you can allow the body to drive you, but the body has two parts to it. It has an innate consciousness that wants to evolve and align with what supports it, but at the same time, it also has patterns and programs and trapped emotions or locked-in emotions that trigger in. And the same thing with the emotions itself. The emotions itself, I mean, emotions are natural for us. Emotions are a capacity or capability for us to be able to experience an accentuated version of whatever is playing out. It is not in any way to be affecting you in a negative way. However, emotions have been so indoctrined and programmed within ourselves to rely on that, and also the ego likes to use that. So now the emotions actually drive you and make you make certain choices and go down certain paths and so forth. So you can see how all of that plays a particular role. So to understand this even more fully at this point, to go into more depth, in regards to how we feel, it always relies back to observing yourself. So those are some of the parts on a personal level they're allowing. The other part that we allow is our interactions with others. So each time we're accepting someone's personal idea, concepts, and belief system, and we end up agreeing to it or feeling a resonance to it, which is great, we're now allowing whatever that statement, whatever that energy, whatever was being shared to become part of your creation, part of your design of your reality, and extended further. So a lot of us want to be accepted, want to play a particular role with people and say, okay, well, I'm going to agree. I'm going to accept what they're saying. Now, there could be a part of you saying, no, I don't agree, but I'm going to agree. Well, you're going to agree to a certain degree, but you're going to create a counter interactions to that, which can be a little confusing, can be very, how can I say it, non-integral within yourself. So what you want to really look at is to observe, why am I doing this? Why am I agreeing? Because that agreement is allowance. Agreeing with whatever they're saying is a certain amount of allowance is being streamed, which you're going to use. And then if you're putting a counter belief system, then that becomes a conflictive response within yourself, and then you create a third component, and that component is that I cannot be myself, or this and that, and you're now activating another reality where I have to play this role because I want to be accepted or whatever it is. And that's why you want to look at that, because that is also another form of allowance. So to look at that, allowing all of that to come into play, it continues to extend, because each time we accept, the ideas and concepts of, say, your family dynamics, like the traditions or whatever's been passed down or whatever's been said, as long as we agree with it, we're allowing that allowance to come into us, and we're allowing that to be utilized as a way to shape our reality. And this is why sometimes we find it difficult to step back from a family dynamics. First of all, we have, of course, the overlaying story that I need to be accepted or whatever it is, and this is expected of me. They're my family, and I have to play this particular role. But just to be cautious, or in this case, attentive, that when you're doing that, you're allowing that to stream. Now, it's not only their beliefs that you're allowing, it's also their energy. You're also allowing them to kind of shape your reality in a way where not only the stories, but how they're shaping it and how they're expressing themselves actually become interlinked, so that you're actually engaging and becoming part of that stream. So you will notice that we change. We are, say in a family dynamic, we're playing a different role. Well, there's a role, and then there is the part where you become part of the role. So if you're stepping separately as just a role player, you have a shape where you can just play, you're like acting. And that's very different than accepting what is dictated in that role and then becoming part of the role. Once you become part of the role, now you're allowing those energies to shape you, to stimulate possibly emotions. It can alter your chemistry in your body or the functionality of your body and the codes, because we do carry many different codes, but also our thought patterns and our patterns of how we look at things and make different choices. So all of that comes into play. So it's not just, I'm just going to go play there and take on a role. It depends on how deep you go into the role. Now, a lot of us have programs believing, I got to accept whatever my mother, father, whoever says, or certain individuals in your life, because, you've agreed to play together. But at the same time, as you're doing that, as you accept all of that, you're allowing that to be part of your reality shaping. So we go on. And when we look at more going into other things, is whatever we are exposed to each day. Now, we don't realize that when we are observing whatever's playing out and we're feeling stimulation within ourselves, meaning feeling emotional tugs here and there, that is allowing you to accept what is projected. So one of the things I say to people is, you're thinking that in one way or another, that what you're observing, what you're watching, what you're listening to, what you're engaging with, saying, well, I'm, the gatekeeper here. I'm going to be the one that decides if I'm going to accept any of that. Well, the thing is, it works in a very minimal way in that way. But remember, the subconscious mind records everything that you're experiencing it. Then the ego likes to label it And then, of course, there's all the labels that others will project within it. So you may say, well, I'm not going to be affected by what I'm watching, but look, pay attention to it. If you're exposed to, say, the media, for example, and you keep listening to the news or listening to different programs and watching movies and whatever else, all of those things, each time that you're engaging in the experience, each time you're allowing yourself to be engrossed by the experience, or just having that just being shared with you, you're creating a certain level of allowance for it to shape your life. This is why sometimes when you're listening to a lot of different news things, we feel different. We feel maybe hopeless. We may feel hopeful sometimes, but in most cases hopeless, or we may feel sad, or we may feel doomed, or we may feel whatever. And also, what happens is not only just what you're feeling, you're also going to notice that your focus changes. So instead of feeling, okay, I'm going to create something that is not only supportive for myself, but is supportive also to make huge changes, what we end up doing is, because we're shifting, we're actually sharing or supporting the old narrative, or the narrative that is being projected. Now, we understand, and I know I talked about it before, that reality cannot be created by an outside source. Reality is created by us. Now, of course, like we have the individual reality, and we have the different cluster realities, and then we have what we can call the collective reality of planet Earth, and then there's other layers. We can go to the solar system, galaxy, universe, and so forth. But that's not something we need to focus at this point in time, but we're talking about of our immediate reality. So all of those parts become. So the fact, as I said, nothing can shape it, but we can. However, we have to understand that what is being presented to us is what is shaping us, or at least we're adopting those ideas. And while we're adopting, we're just basically allowing ourselves to be programmed, to be conditioned, to be stimulated emotionally and otherwise, and also to activate certain patterns and programs. Now, that can be a tool in a way, because it allows us to kind of see what's coming up for us and then address the story, program, belief system at that point. But in most cases, what happens is we end up having those experiences that take over our own personal reality and experience, how we feel, choices we make, what direction we're going to go. Okay, so when we're looking at all of that, we have to pay attention to, okay, how is this, what I'm being exposed to, feeling for me? And when I say feel, I'm not talking about emotional feeling, but from an energetic feeling point. Because we all feel things a certain way. We feel, I'm in alliance with this, or I feel that I'm not in alliance with this, or you may feel a certain way about certain experiences or certain things, and you may feel very different about something else. So it's that type of feeling, and that feeling is usually from a heart perspective, it's from what we can call human entity perspective, or it can be a physical feeling also. Now, I'm not talking about an emotional feeling from a physical perspective too, because the physicality does, relate with a lot of the emotional part. So you really want to go to the feeling, the clear feeling. So let me give you an example here, something that we can use. A lot of times we may be exposed to something and our body reacts, and we may feel emotions, we may feel tightness, we may feel, how can I say, an excitement, or whatever that may be. Okay, so in that case, what we're looking at is the soul, the body's emotional response to whatever is being exposed. So you want to learn how to be able to decipher what is going to be utilized for you to kind of redirect it. So say you're exposed to something, you may have a reaction. You may have a response of some sort that comes and plays out for you. Now you want to do, what you want to do is you want to sit with that and say, okay, how do I actually feel about this? And if there's a fear or whatever it is that's coming up, you kind of, okay, I acknowledge you, I see you, and so forth, but we're going to put that aside. How does it feel? you can see yourself going through the motions, going through whatever that choice is or whatever you're being exposed to, and kind of monitoring how you feel about it. And when I say feel about it, is it a yay or a nay? Is it something that you want to play with some more with, or something you don't? Now, sometimes the don't part, if it's emotionally charged, then it's an emotion. Then it's an emotion reaction in a program. Because from a higher perspective, of course, we have a higher perspective from the body, a higher perspective from the human entity, from our solar plexus area, and also from the heart. Of course, we utilize the mind as the processor. But when we're paying attention to that, you feel very different versus how it feels to have an emotional reaction. Emotional reaction is very charged. It's polarized in most cases, one way or another. It's either pulled towards it or pushes away from it. So it's either rejecting it or trying to bring it in. From a higher perspective, it just basically looks at whatever is being exposed to and sees if it's aligned. It doesn't feel in alignment. It feels very different than an emotional reaction. So you're going to feel that it's a non-alliance that is taking place versus an alliance. So, and I know I've talked about this in the past and so forth, where we want to make a decision with our dynamics, or to decide what role you're going to play, say in the family or something else. Could be work, could be anything. It doesn't have any limits to where you utilize it. So you can see yourself doing your day-to-day routine, even in your mind's eye, and then kind of feel, because that gives you a discovery of yourself. Now, a lot of people say, well, you know something, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what my direction of life is, what my next step is. Well, you can use this tool very powerfully. So, for example, if you want to review your life, you can do so by looking at your life. You take the time, you quieten the mind, and you observe your day. So you see yourself waking up and taking certain steps. Now, if there's an emotional pulling back or something like that, you're going to acknowledge it. You're going to thank it, and you're going to put it aside. Okay? We're not playing there. You want to see yourself being part of whatever that may be. So you're seeing yourself going to work. I'm just going to use this as an example. You see yourself going to work, and you're engaging and seeing yourself doing your day-to-day work. Now, you're going to observe while you're doing that how it feels. So you're kind of having a feedback. Experience, feedback, experience, feedback. Now, when you're having the experience and the feedback, you're going to observe what the feedback is. And the feedback may feel like, this is not really exciting for me, or something of that nature, or it's not something that resonates with me any longer. Of course, then the other part will come in, and the feedback was, oh no, we have to work, or we have to do this, or we're going to upset the boss, or we're going to lose our job, or whatever it is, or the business may flounder, or whatever it may be. Again, we're still playing with the work environment. So you want to see yourself going through the motion of experiencing the day, the work, whatever it is, and you can monitor. Now, if there are certain areas that feel not so in alignment, you want to look at it more closely. And you're going to say, okay, what feels a little awkward about this part of my job? Now, that will indicate for you if there's a judgment attached to it, or the fact that it's just something that is not supportive of you any longer, or that you've outgrown. Because a lot of times we choose a certain endeavor, and we're in complete alignment, but then things change. What changes? You're advancing, your energy is changing, your consciousness, your focus is changing, so it may not support you. So then through that observation, you will decide if it's going to be something that you want to continue to support or not. Now, of course, it doesn't mean you have to drop it instantaneously. However, you want to observe it and say, okay, and then if you can take the moment to write it down, say, okay, this is what I'm observing. This part of the job, for example, it does not feel in alignment. what would feel in alignment? What do I have a preference in? And when I'm saying preference, we're not talking about like or dislike. What aligns for you? What is your offering? Because again, it's always about offering and also aligning to that offering as an offering to humanity or whatever it may be playing out. It could be for a business or an employer, it doesn't matter. What am I prepared to offer? What feels most alignment with me? And then you can look at yourself doing that and see how the energies feel about you at that point. See if it excites you or if it feels more energetically supportive. Can you see yourself being doing that and really nurturing of yourself and also seeing a difference being made? Because then you're creating an alignment with yourself and you're also going more in alignment with your purpose. Because our purposes are not rigid. Our purpose continues to change, expand. What was once no longer and something else comes along. You have to understand that our purpose is always evolving, always redirecting ourselves. So for right now, what is my current trajectory or the current offering of this dance of life? And that's what you want to monitor and adjust accordingly. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to do this all the time, but you're going to live life as you're doing it. You're going to feel certain things that are going to feel in alignment or not, and then you want to look at it and see what needs to be changed. Now, you may make a choice saying, okay, this no longer supports me. This is not where I want to play. This is not something that is, in one way or another, going to, how can I say, going to be in something I want to continue doing for a long period of time. So, you're going to notice those things coming along. So you say, okay, I'm going to take this step forward. I'm going to play with it. I'm going to go down this path, but you're going to also allow it to develop and change along the way. This is the beauty of it. When we're paying attention, you're in the observer mode. So you're the role player and the observer at the same time. Because remember, we are source. We are the creator, we are our own creation, and we're the observer of creation. And the observation is very instrumental because the observation allows us to adjust our creation, adjust not only our personal creation, but our collective creation. And right now, we're really observing a lot because in that observation, we're also noticing what no longer matches our current reality from personal and forward or expanded. Meaning the worldscape. So at this point in time, you can use that exercise on a regular basis to kind of look at your life each step of the way. Now, this also applies through, what you've taken on or adopted as an idea of way of life, meaning your own personal life. You need to look at it and say, well, I got to do this, I got to do that, and whatever it is. Now, you want to take the exercise and look at that and say, okay, let me see myself doing it. How does it feel? Of course, if you have a judgment, you want to make sure that that judgment is released in the sense or cleared, because you don't want to be using a judgment or a label to emphasize whatever that is. You're going to put that aside. Okay, I acknowledge you, I put you aside. But you want to see how it feels, okay? See yourself doing what you're doing and then see if it's an alignment. Now, a lot of times we say, oh, well, I don't want to prepare food anymore. I don't want to do this. Or I don't want to take care of this. That may not be because there's an alignment. A lot of times it could be a label that is applied. Well, that means that, I'm this or that in some way, you have a judgment of what that task may be based on something else that you observed and say, well, I don't want to do that anymore. Well, then that's emotion, that's the ego, that's kind of not the direction you want to focus on. You want to look at it and say, okay, I understand that. Let me move it aside and let me really look at the steps of it. Now, by observing it, of course, please write it down. You're going to now look at it, okay, how can I reshape it? Now, what immediate changes can I make? What immediate redirection I can take? Because sometimes we're not in a position to kind of drop everything. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. That happens a lot for a lot of people. But at the same time, you say, okay, I'm going to create alterations to this so that it's a little bit more alignment. And eventually, I may have to drop the whole thing or redesign it in a completely different way so that it feels more in alignment. So that can take place in your own personal life when you're looking at what choices you make, what you do and don't do. And the same thing when it comes to your immediate family and then extended family. Because again, when we're playing those, why am I doing it? Is it an idea, a concept that I have to play this role this way? Or does it really feel natural? Because it's very, very important right now. You want to get to the most natural state possible. That's part of what is taking place right now. It's bringing in us to the most natural state, our true essence. And in our true essence, for example, you may have a certain particular interactions with your siblings, or a certain particular interaction with your own children, or interactions with different people, but let's stick with the children temporarily. And we bought into the idea, accepted the idea, created allowance, allowing ourselves to take on the idea that a good parent works this way. A good parent needs to play this role this way. Now, that's an idea and a concept. Where that came from was something we adopted, but at what state? When we were deep in the inverted matrix, deep in the inverted 3D, deep in the 2D, deep into handed down concepts of what that represented? Or is it something that is natural to you? Because I've seen it so many times, a parent, when they start looking at their actions and observing it, and also their choices and how they play a particular role as a parent, for example, then they start to observe, I'm just responding, I'm reacting, I'm just taking certain steps, but are they really true to me? Am I really that? Am I being my truest essence? They will notice the conflict, they will notice that it isn't. Then what happens? A new choice is made. And then you start looking at it and say, okay, I'm going to now go and see myself, before even having the physical representation through the mind, see yourself altering, adjusting, or eliminating or adding certain components to that interaction, say with your children. So now you see yourself more as a playmate with them, seeing yourself being more open to them taking self-responsibility in it, and assisting them to become empowered by that, rather than being the old dictator or the discipliner, or the fact that you need to play a role a very specific way. So these are powerful observations that you will make, and this is all instrumental how we change our personal and the different levels of reality. So use that as a powerful tool. Now, of course, the media is very powerful at this point in time, in the movies, in the shows, in the music, in the talks and whatever else, and then of course the news and whatever else, that really, really, really is polarized, and it's very powerfully creating a concept, an idea. And as much as we feel that it's just a show, like I was saying earlier, a movie, whatever it is still playing out. But the reason I'm bringing that up again is you want to see yourself as an observer when you're watching, or reenacting it in your mind through your third eye sort of thing, or what we call inner eye. And so what you want to do is you want to look at it and just observe what it's representing to you, how it feels with you. Because once you watch it, you're observing it, you're going into observer mode, you can feel different things playing out. Now, of course, movies and so forth do play a role to stimulate whatever it is, to kind of look at our programs or whatever else, and that's fine. However, it also programs us. We're allowing that to shape our life. So you want to really observe what you're observing, and also what is given allowance to shape your life. If we're looking at bad news all the time, or the fact that people are killing each other, or the fact that in some way it's dangerous or something of that nature, that is, at whatever degree of belief or an openness that we apply, it's allowing us to shape our reality. And then you're going to notice that you may feel very different and very inverted 3D, 2D versus your fifth dimensional organic and organic 3D. So we're saying, okay, I want to awaken. I want to really shape my life in alignment. But as long as you're allowing all of that to come into your creation and the programming, then you're going to find that, because it will alter your frequency through emotions, through stories and belief systems. Of course, you want to observe them all and clear out as much as possible by first of all acknowledging, seeing the perfection in it, appreciating it, loving it, and then you can let it go. Now, that letting go is through love, through whatever it is. So the reason we wanted to talk about allowing, because a lot of times we do not realize how much we're allowing the external inputs, which are just another reflection of mirrors, if you want to call it, but the external input and whatever is playing out to shape our reality. Now, education is very powerful for that. It shapes us to play what we call the inverted matrix, the inverted 3D and 2D. But it doesn't stop only on education. It's in all facets of exposure of any media, and also at the same time who we interact with and clusters that we get involved with. You will notice as people become more aware, their choices are different. They may no longer watch the news. And they'll also notice that in one way or another that they're focusing on discovering themselves. They may stop watching movies, or at least certain types of movies, because most of them are influential anyways, regardless, even if it's a love story. Because a lot of times whatever, it taints or creates an idea what that represents, and then go, oh, I want that, whatever it is, when it's really not a true representation of who you are. And that doesn't mean you don't experience love, you don't experience the connections with one another, but it's a very much more expanded version than what is being portrayed on the TV. So a lot of people, what happens is as you go through an awakening process, all of a sudden you're getting rid of, the pattern of watching movies and shows and whatever else. The odd time you may plug it in, but again, you'll be very selective of what you want to ingest, because that's what you're doing. You're accepting that, because all of it is being allowed to kind of shape your reality. And a lot of times we don't realize that in that level. So the awakening process, you're making new choices, your thought forms are changing. And when we're talking about thought forms, we're not talking about positive, negative. Saying, okay, I'm going to stop focusing on a negative, I'm going to focus on a positive. Well, you know what happens with positive, negative, they're polarities, right? And then we're supporting polarities. We're just basically not going to put focus on either, but we're going to connect with ourselves and start to focus more on our reality creation and being experientially rich with no right or wrong, good or bad applied to it. So, if you're watching the media, for example, there's the right and wrong and good and bad. It's very highly accentuated and intensified and whatever else that's playing out at this point in time to really kind of bring us left, right, and center. And that is purposeful in a way, because it gives us an opportunity to observe and check our programs and whatever. But at the same time, we have to be aware and conscious of that is influencing us one way or another. So by going through this, you're going to notice that, like I was saying, people that are, shifting their consciousness and so forth are choosing a very much more selective of what they're watching, what they're exposing to, and also some of the organizations and connections they had. Maybe they may drop the religious facet of it. They may drop certain friendships, or the friendships will drop you, whatever. Some of the work that you will be doing, your focus of whatever endeavor that you may have, accepted as your way of life, will start to change too. So you will notice various things will shift because you do not resonate with that frequency. You do not accept or allow all of that stuff to influence you in one way or another. Because look at the beauty of it. You're in a purging process. You're clearing out old versions of your perceptions, ideas, and so forth. Because I've said it many times before, you have to understand all these stories, programs, and beliefs that were pretty well created at the peak of the inverted matrix, inverted 3D, and 2D. The versions of you are all reflective of that. So all of that is part and parcel of what played out. So what happens? So you're looking at it and saying, well, if I'm going to focus on any of that, I am now stimulating that older versions. How do I create or allow my newer version to come through if I'm focusing on that part of it? So this is the thing. So you start to shift away from whatever played out in your life before and really being attentive to what is now, and use that as, this is the scenery I'm with, but the scenery does not shape or dictate me. I'm not allowing, and you're not going to go through a protection mode, but I'm not allowing that to be part of what is shaping my life. So what happens is, for many of us, we start to go internal. And internal, we're connecting to not only our soul, but our human entity and our body consciousness, so that we can use those resources to kind of create the shifts within ourselves. By using those resources, we're also allowing other energies that are being streamed right now as codes well, let's call it codes, but also higher frequencies that are being streamed to us at this point in time. We can use more of that to be utilized as part of your creation. So when we're looking at all of this, when we look at the big picture of it, by connecting with ourselves, we're now shifting away from the external world and we're going into our internal world, which is most in alignment with ourselves. And that internal world actually shapes our external world. So our external world will start to change. Now, there's going to be conflicts. So there's going to be, and when I say conflicts, inconsistencies. But as that is playing out, then you choose to drop any part of that that does not match that inner world that is emerging from you. So that's kind of part of the process that we are doing at this time to facilitate ourselves so that we can advance and move forward in a very powerful way. And I wanted to cover this. I know this is kind of an extension to what we did on episode 38, but in this episode, I wanted to be much more clear in regards to what is really influencing us in a powerful way when it comes to how we project our reality from this moment. And you know, a lot of times, like I said, we do not realize how much of the focus we put on the external world that shapes us. Now, for example, we can watch Facebook, we can watch YouTube. I mean, there's good content, and you're probably watching some right now as we're talking. But also there are content that will push you from left, right, and center. And you want to pay attention to that so that you can see that what you're consuming is either in alignment or stimulating for you in a way old programs and stories that you need to address and clear out, but then not focusing that on any longer because it no longer resonates with you. So the amount of time and focus that you put in that older version will shift away. And this is what's happening for many of us. What was appealing at one point in time and what was very stimulating at one point in time, when I say, you know, traumatic or, you know, playing with the emotional heights and stuff like that in that so-called polarity, becomes less and less attractive to us because, you know, we are becoming more aligned with what we are being exposed to, but what we're also choosing to create. And this is the beauty of this beautiful dance that we're doing at this time. I would really like to see what some of your questions are at this point in time, and I don't know if I can do that. I'm going to try, and hopefully we won't drop the connection in doing this. I'm going to use one of the other computers here. I was hoping to do this with Kimberly on the phone. Unfortunately, the wireless cord didn't want to work. Maybe I can do it wired, but I didn't prepare myself to do that. So let's take a look if I can see anything on Facebook here that we can address. I know usually when Kimberly is around, it's so much easier because she monitors all your comments and questions and so forth, and then we are able to kind of address it. So let's see here if I can do this. Because I'd like to make sure that everybody is understanding what's going on with what I just shared. Okay, let's do this here. All right, there's quite a few there, and I'm going to also check YouTube and see if we can get on there. Well, that's not going to work. Let's do this. I didn't launch all of this because had some concerns about the internet, because our internet needs to be repaired tomorrow. They're coming back out to see. I think there was an electrical storm of some sort that has affected the lines or something of that nature, because we've had to replace a few components, but it's still interfering at this point. Some things had died, but whatever it is. So if there's any questions, I got a lot of hellos and morning Queensland. Okay. All right, so one of the comments is, for Mena, we've been taking it easy on you today. Well, thank you for that. That's great. I can't stop to see Netflix. Okay, well, the thing is, what I recommend at this point in time is, and this is your choice. I mean, this is your creation. This is your... See how it feels when you're observing what you're observing, how it feels, what you're getting as a feedback within yourself. This is the thing you want to observe. I'm having a difficult time here. Let me just see if I can do this one more time. There we go. I think we got it now. So whatever you're watching, just observe, okay? So for example, back to the Netflix thing, there's going to be programs on there and so forth. So you want to pay attention how it makes you feel. Is it supporting an elevated version of you that you're growing into, or is it kind of pulling you down energetically and otherwise? Is it still referring to an older version of yourself, an older way of life? Is it still very inverted 3D? Now, you can say once in a while, you say, okay, I want to experience that. I want to look at that part of it or whatever it is. But be attentive to how it actually affects you. How much of is being allowed to become part of your reality and so forth. Now, a lot of times we have a challenge letting go certain patterns because it's a stimulation for us. It's almost like an escapism for us. We play the day-to-day life, whatever it is, and then I go, oh, I got to chill out. I'm going to watch something on Netflix, for example, as was said there. And then you're going to find that it takes you out of your current reality and so forth. Now, yeah, that serves a purpose to some degree. And if you're going to pay attention, make sure you have a pen and paper with you, and you want to write down certain things that get stimulated. But the other thing is too, you say, okay, I want to really shift my reality. You may choose not to put so much time into, say, the Netflix, and then look at having a communication with yourself and the different levels, being your body, your human entity, and your soul, and see what you can adjust accordingly to be much more in alignment with the grander aspect of yourself, that truer essence that is emerging. Many of us are saying, I want that truer, higher essence to come forth and play out in a very powerful way. And then at the same time, we're putting a lot of focus on, okay, we have to go to work, we go play that game, we got to play the family game, but then we go into the Netflix or movies or whatever it is, and then we use that as to kind of take us away from that, but it's still very reflective of that world. So you're going through the different stages, and it's still reflective of the old world. So you want to pay attention. How is it making me feel? What is my focus on this? Am I enjoying this? But that's great. How am I feeling by it? By just observing how you feel. Now, a lot of times it's emotional, and that helps you. As soon as you're feeling emotions, write down, I'm feeling emotional, and what's bothering me with that. So that particular scene, whatever it is, what is it triggering? It's triggering an old memory, an old pattern, an old something. But at the same time, you want to also look at the other aspects of it. Does this, what I'm looking at, really supportive of me? Am I resonating? It is demonstrating a higher version. And in most cases, it's not. Now, there's going to be information too that, documentaries or whatever, but you want to also be attentive to what the focus is behind that and how it serves you. All right, let's see what else we got here. Any advantage to watching, say, a guide on Facebook and feeling very uncomfortable, misaligned? Would that not be referring your discernment? Would that not me referring your discernment? Okay, so you can watch other people sharing certain information, certain whatever in regards to, say, higher awareness. Now, if you're noticing that there's a dissonance to it or it feels like not totally in alignment, you want to see what the alignment is about, okay? Because a lot of times it doesn't mean that information is coming through is 100% in alignment with you or is actually, what can I say, stimulating your state of where you are choosing to go. So something may feel, and that's where the discernment comes in and say, okay, this doesn't align. Now, there's two ways to that. You say, okay, this is not alignment, I can turn it off. I don't want to pay attention to that, and I want to go with something that feels in resonance for me. The other part of it is if it's playing out a particular role and some things resonate and some things don't. You say, okay, these things are resonating because it matches with what I've been feeling or what I've been understanding or it's triggering my own knowing, but these other parts don't. So I'm just going to let those parts go. So you're not going to put any focus on that. You're not going to throw everything out just because, right? So you basically at this point in time want to adopt or utilize or use any part of it that resonates, and the parts that don't, you can just let it go. So you can use that as a method. Now, a lot of times what we're watching stimulates our knowing. As I've said earlier with the series, it stimulates your own true knowing within yourself. And that is only a purpose for you to stimulate that, but it's not to override any part of it. Now, not everybody's going to resonate with all of this because there's another component to this. The reason why we may not resonate, we may not be ready for those changes. We're still playing deep into that role, or whatever that role may be. And you're going to say, well, okay, this, I'm not ready for this, or may feel that it's non-resonance. Because many of us have felt that certain things may have resonated at one point and then doesn't resonate any longer, or things that they may not have resonated before now resonate, depending on the stages and the choices that we make and what is needed for us to kind of make adjustments within ourselves. So hopefully that's helpful. Okay, are there energetic low frequencies being emitted from movies? Yes, true, regardless of the content. Yes, I mean, most of all of the movies are encoded by the frequencies. There's a lot of symbolism in there. There's a lot of activations in there. So really the media, the movies and so forth have been designed a very specific way to kind of hold us in that inverted matrix, inverted 3D, 2D state. So there's a lot of energies and even the frequency of the way the lights are, and I'm not talking about the lighting of the scenery, but because again, everything is digital, but at the same time, it's also, what's the word? The flashing, the frame rates and whatever else. A lot of these things, are designed in such a way to alter at different states just so that it does provide. Like for even the music itself, music used to be tuned in its natural state of 432 hertz. Of course, we have other hertz, but then it got modified to 440 hertz and made that as a standard. Now, if you actually experiment or experience yourself with the two different streams of music, could be the same music, same lyrics, same everything, one tuned at 432 and one tuned at 440, you're going to notice the 432 gives you a whole body experience because it engages every part of you, and it can also stimulate emotions and so forth, where the 440 localizes that frequency in your head and alters your mind or your mind, the brain and so forth, and how it receives the signal so that it actually has more access. So it puts you more complacent, but also more compliant, more willing to accept whatever is being directed from the music to be accepted. And I know a lot of the professional music people that have, are in tuned and aligned, like Marco, that has his music. He's been trying to tune his music at 432, Missanato. Yes, trying to tune the music at 432 so that it becomes more of a holistic and it doesn't interfere with the brain. So you have to understand there's a lot of scenery, like subconscious sceneries that take place very quickly put into the different frames at different times that stimulate certain things. So that creates a frequency adjustment within yourself, and of course the frequency direct. This applies to music, applies to movies and so forth. It also applies to TV shows, and it does apply at times what we're looking at in the news media, of course, in a huge way. Now, and I did cover part of this. For us to give, for anything that coming into our reality as a part of creation, we have to allow, first of all. But what really takes place is that the ones that are instigating all of this or putting it into action really have no capacity to change our reality or do anything for us. They can only convince us to do so. And the convincing requires our willingness, our openness, our allowance. So sometimes we're projected so often that this is the norm, we accept it as a norm, and that becomes an allowance that we're accepting those norms. So just hopefully that clarifies that for you. All right, let's see what else we got here. It's so much easier when you have assistance. Okay. All right, so I'm going to check Facebook now because that was YouTube. I appreciate that there's not many because I'm manning this by myself. Okay, so I think we've covered what's there. If I missed it, I apologize that I didn't see it, but I'm trying to do this as easily as possible here. Let me switch back to the monitor here so that I can actually see what's going on. Okay, we're still streaming well. So, at this point, as a recap, and going through this, I wanted to cover all of these areas because it's really instrumental for us to realize that, we are allowing a lot of influence, a lot of programming, a lot of stories, a lot of energies within ourselves. You could say unconsciously, but from a superconscious level, you're aware of it. But we discount that discount that big time because we want to kind of focus on the fact of, what is playing out and what is most exciting. Because look at it this way. Emotions stimulated in its polarity has a certain level of excitement versus that knowing within. Now, of course, as we become more attuned to the knowing becomes more exciting because the knowing actually creates a whole new reality, a new world where the emotional charges and so forth really just reflect an old world, an old aspect of yourself and so forth. So that's kind of where, that's shifting. Because what's happening right now, we're shifting on so many levels. The consciousness of the body is elevated tremendously, the human entity the same, the souls have also, we have a lot of dormant components, operating systems and so forth within ourselves that are being re-stimulated. Of course, we've been going through a purging process, but the purging is letting go of old versions of ourselves and so forth. But, we also have to look at that there's always a constant stream, and it's up to us to pay attention to what is streaming so that we can decide if we're going to allow it in or not. Are we going to shape it? I know sometimes people say, well, is this my feelings or somebody else's feelings? Well, the collective and also certain clusters and so forth will emanate frequencies, stories, ideas, whatever it is, whatever that may be. If we have an opening to it, we're allowing it to come into our reality. And then I'm saying again, resisting it or something. We're allowing it because we still have an innate program that, or an old program that's still active. Then guess what? It's going to come in and it's going to stimulate us, and we're going to feel that energy. Because we cannot feel emotional charges. We cannot feel discomfort with anything, any energies or any thought forms or anything that's being presented at any point in time, unless we have a program, a story, a belief system, or label or definition that relates with it, and then that's what's being launched. That's what we are experiencing. We're not experiencing just the energy. Because when you do not have a program related to what you're exposed to, you can feel the energy, but the energy does not elicit any emotional charge. It does not alter your frequency. You just can feel that frequency coming in. And you can feel it, but at the same time, as your frequency increases, that frequency doesn't even, it gets negated very easily and very effectively in a way where you're not even being exposed to that energy in any way, shape, or form. Let's put it this way. You're this beam of light, darkness can't come in. I'm just using that as an analogy. It's not the correct way to present it. So, as long as that higher frequency is there, the lower frequency doesn't get drawn to it and doesn't even come forth. So you're basically, it's like this. Let me give you a simple example. You walk into a room and it's pitch dark. There's a lot of other people that are supporting that darkness. You walk in and you're holding such a high light frequency. What happens is that light that's emitting from you, that frequency, that higher frequency emitting you, is actually dispelling or actually negating most of the dimmer lighting or the darkness or whatever you want to call it, because you're illuminating, you're increasing the vibration. And you've seen it. You can walk into a room and you can feel the heaviness. If there's a lot of heaviness that's being projected by the occupants or the people that were occupying and left. So a lot of times, we talk about clearing those energies and whatever else, but how do we clear it? We just raise our vibration. The other aspect of it is that you can walk into a room filled with people of a low vibration, but you're going in a high vibration. Not that you're purposely going in high vibration, you're allowing your natural high vibration to come through. So as you're walking in the room, you're illuminating, you're creating an adjustment to the energies of the room, because you are way more powerful than the lower frequencies. However, if we have a program that supports that lower frequency, then we may feel it and it will lower our frequency. And that's what we have to be attentive to and observing, is that if you're walking into a room and it's lowering your frequency and it's triggering, though, that's your story program, and you want to really look at what that is about so that you can go through that clearing process for future use, because you don't want any of that to be active any longer. You want to get rid of them. And that is because you're getting rid of that older version of yourself. But if you're going into a room and you can feel the energy, but it's not affecting you, you just open your heart. You just allow that your higher energy to go. Now, sometimes you're going to go into a room where people like to stay in that lower frequency, and you're walking in a higher frequency, and it's like you're disrupting them. You're kind of breaking down. So they may leave, or the fact that you may feel an energy pushing you out the door, pushing you out of the room, because at that point in time it's saying, no, we want to play let me use this as an analogy. We want to play in the dark. Don't come and illuminate us, because we're having fun playing in the dark, or playing in drama and playing in all of that. Because, you can turn around and say, hey, life's a game. Let's play with this, blah, blah, blah. And then they're going, no, I have a lot of vested interest in my old game and my old thing. And this is what a lot of us have to deal with. And, by observing all of that, you're able to kind of clear out all of that stuff, so that when you do feel that you're not welcome there, and it's not because you're the wrong frequency, you're just a high frequency and they want to stay in the low frequency, so you're going, okay, I respect you want to play there, you go play there. And there's been people in a family dynamics, with parents or whatever else, that play still the old world, and you're playing a higher world. Now you can interact with them, but at sometimes you just let them play. You can walk away, or you can choose to less frequently connect with them. and let them have their drama, because you're going to create a disruption with them. A lot of times we say, we want to break out of our old patterns, but a lot of it, we're quite endeared to the old programs, and we're not so easily saying, oh, I'm just going to drop it and I'm going to move on. No, it's not. So just be attentive to that. Respect the fact that everybody's going to play wherever they are. Now, there's people at different levels of frequency right now all over the world, okay? As powerful beings that we are, some of us have decided that, hey, we're going to be the path makers. We're going to go through this process as quickly as possible, as accentuated as possible, as stimulated as possible. We're going to use every facet possible. Others may say, I'm going to take it a more scenic route. I'm going to go a little slower. I want to do whatever we're doing, but I'm also being of service. And others saying, I'm going to move really slow because I'm not done with this experience yet. I'm still playing a role, and I've made some commitments and agreements to stay there. And others are saying, well, I'm not going there ever, so I'm going to play my role and then I'm going to leave. I'm going to unplug myself from this. So you got to allow them to be. It's not one better than the other. Remember, we're all source. We're all playing a game. We're all playing, taking certain frequency options of how we're going to play the game or experience it or relate it or stimulate it and reflect it or anything of that nature. We want to look at it and say, okay, we respect all aspects of ourselves, let it play whatever it needs to play. Many times, there's the ego that may say no, 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 but their higher self is saying yes, yes, yes. So you're gonna feel when they're ready to make a change, and even though the ego's taking a fit or a tantrum or whatever you want to call it, you're going to still you're going to share. And the thing is, you're not here to fix anybody. Nobody's here to fix you, and no, you're not here to fix anybody. You're just sharing your not only personal experiences, but also at the same time your expanded version of yourself. And that's all. And then they choose. Now, they may ask you some questions. You can answer. However, you can monitor and notice when they're open and when they're not open, because at certain points they may feel, I'm going to pull back, and they don't want to be so open to it. That's perfectly fine. Just let them go through whatever they're going through. Everybody here is still, like I said, sourced, but everybody's making an advancement of some sort or another, either in form or non-form, either right away or later on. It's all playing out the way it needs to play out. Now, many of us are feeling the push within ourselves to really step into our genuine, authentic essence self and, clear out whatever is an older representation, but also to create a new world based on the new you that's coming through. See, I've talked about it quite often, and you've probably heard it from other people. We're going through a human physical experience transformation and also a world playground experience transformation too. So all of this is transforming because it's upgrading. It's all about upgrading. It's upgrading the game. It's upgrading the frequency it operates. It's getting rid of the polarity that was no longer of service. And that's all that's taking place at this point in time. So anyways, I think I've covered enough of whatever we wanted to cover today. So just pay attention. Back to what the title is. What are you allowing to shape your reality and world? It's all yours to observe. And I've given you much to kind of reflect upon and to look at. Because again, the key is to remember, no one has power over you. Nothing controls you. You only allow for it to take a role, to take a position, to accept those parts of it based on possibly, in most cases, older versions of yourself that you're on the process of clearing out, or the fact that we're saying, okay, I want to still play there. And this is what you have to keep in mind, that you are ultimately in charge of your design, of your creation, your reality, and the extended reality. So here we are. We're transforming the playground. We're transforming ourselves. We're basically clearing out all operating system. We're re-interacting with, or in this case, bringing into alignment much more. We're reconnecting, aligning to the organic matrix, which is supportive for us to be able to evolve and advance. We are purging out all the 2D inverted 3D stuff and inverted matrix stuff and the ego that supports on that, so that we actually go into the organic 3D and organic 5D and beyond, because it doesn't stop there. Your physical form on planet Earth may be at, say, fifth dimensional consciousness in attunement, but then we also have access to higher levels of consciousness that we can bring into part of the experience, which will prepare us to advance even further. The same thing with organic 3D. It's all part and parcel of that, and that's what we're doing. So thank you for coming together. Thank you for making this opportunity for us to play together. I thank you for all the support that you have provided along the way, financially and otherwise, to be able to continue to stream this. We will, be streaming more. Hopefully we can get a lot of this internet stuff and all the other little quirks taken care of, so that we can, ramp things back up again the following month. We do have a workshop that we are putting together that we will be doing in September that will support us even further. Of course, the podcast is, getting closer to being launched, and so that's coming in. I have to apologize. We planned to come out 2 months ago, but one thing after another kind of sidetracked us, and also ran into some obstacles and stuff. And we've got a lot of that sorted out, and we're just moving forward in that regards. And anyways, if you haven't seen the old workshop that we did about a month and a half ago or so, it's in the comment section. You can do that. If you want to support the work, you resonate with it, then we have a contribution part also in the body available for you, for us to do that. And then we have various other programs and workshops that are recorded, which are video and audio available. So until next time, go and have a blast. Be attentive on how you play the game of life, how you focus on the direction of your life. You're here to be completely shaping your reality each moment from this point. Thank you again.